did make a move pending a trade call. Not much today, Jody. For weeks we were talking about what might the Blue Jackets do on trade deadline day. Might they be able to trade their defensive depth and add a forward, get somebody that can score? But as it turned out, with the injuries the Blue Jackets have, they weren't able to do very much. But again, the one deal pending the trade call being completed, because even though the deadline's at 3 o'clock, all the paperwork has to go through. The Blue Jackets acquiring Devon Shore from the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Sonny Milano. This makes a lot of sense on both sides. Both guys are restricted free agents at the end of the year, and Sonny Milano hasn't been able to crack this lineup.
Yeah, and he's been, a former first-round pick of the Blue Jackets, and the writing was on the wall the past couple of games. When you have 10 people out of your lineup and the coach says you're not playing because it's a coach's decision, I'm sure Sonny Milano's camp said, okay, you know what, do us a favor and see if we can find another place in this league. I like the way he stayed around in training camp, Sonny Milano. He's got the skill. He's a very talented player, so we wish him the best. But then for Devon Shore, this is a former second-round pick to the Dallas Stars. He's a player that he plays with some size. He's a guy that can be strong around the puck. He's also got a lot of potential. He's now, you mentioned he's a restricted free agent after this season. He's just finishing up a pretty good deal, just under $5 million for 2 years. So he's a guy with a lot of prospects. So interesting deal, nice pickup. Seems like a solid play to me for the Blue Jackets to move on Sonny Milano. It didn't work with the coach and the way they want to play here, and then bring in a guy that could fit in and bring a little bit of edge to this lineup.
Edge and flexibility, because he can play all three of the forward positions.
Yeah, well, that's nice. I mean, a lot of guys do slot in or think they do come in as centermen, then they do better as the wings. Maybe he's a guy that can actually fill a center ice role, which the Blue Jackets could use some help with.
All right, so again, that is pending the trade call going through and being finalized, but Devon Shore now part of the Blue Jackets in exchange for Sonny Milano. Now, the Ottawa Senators are the opponent for the Blue Jackets tonight. This is the only game in the NHL tonight, by the way. Game. Just one game. And Ottawa, they took some hits on their forwards today because they made a couple of deals. The biggest one that they made, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, was sent to the New York Islanders, and it is a conditional first-round pick in 2020, a second-round pick in 2020, and then a conditional second-round pick in 2022. And I think for that last one, the Islanders have to get to the Stanley Cup final for that to happen. But anyway, this is a guy, he was talked about. He was a coveted forward, a centerman.
Yep.
A lot of teams were kicking the tires on him, trying to get him. The Islanders wind up doing it. It looked like it was kind of a steep price for a guy that was going to be an unrestricted free agent. But guess what? They've now signed him to a deal. So they acquire him, they sign him, and now it's a pretty good price to get a guy you'll have for 5 years.
Yeah, major haul for the Senators, and they've got 7 picks in the first 2 rounds. I mean, they've loaded up for the draft. And Pageau is an interesting player. He leads the team in points here as he leaves the Ottawa Senators. He is that top-line centerman. I love the way he plays. He plays with tenacity, and he puts work ahead of skill, which I know every team loves, especially the Islanders. So love the pickup by them, and they went after it. They gave up on the picks. They understand what they have here in a team that's underachieving and injured a little bit in New York. So they're going to go for it, and this is a nice acquisition that fits in. If you think about their center ice right now, Barzal, Nelson, and Pageau. Put them in any order you want in any given night, and I think that's what Barry Trotz likes when he's got those young pieces. So interesting lineup there, and they're a team that's making a statement like a lot of teams. And for the Blue Jackets, Bob, we started off by saying that there wasn't many trades here, but let's go back to last year and what happened with this team.
Yeah, this is boring compared to last year.
I mean, last year was the year that they gave up a lot of draft picks. They went all in with unrestricted free agents that they had, and they knew were leaving at the end of the year. And here you go. And this was it was amazing what was happening here as these pieces were coming in from Ottawa. And it's funny that this happens again, but different spot. They feel good about where they're at, and the prices that were being asked were probably high at moments today. We'll hear from Jarmo Kekalainen here at the top of the hour. But interesting how it works, and how the Blue Jackets, they feel really good about what they have, and the advantage point they have is they've seen a lot of what they have at the top level. So that's a position of strength, and the one piece that did move to this point is Sonny Milano, who couldn't play in this lineup with the way they want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. In this trade for Ottawa today, that was the second of 3 trades that they made. They started the day by trading Vladislav Nemesnikov to the Colorado Avalanche. They later on traded Tyler Ennis to the Edmonton Oilers. So that leaves them a little bit short tonight. They had to make some moves. Bobby Ryan is expected to return to their lineup tonight. He's been out. Also, Matthew Pekka has been called up from the American Hockey League. So that's how they're filling a couple of holes here. But that's a team. You've been on teams when guys get traded on trade deadline day. It has an effect in the room, especially especially when they're big guys like Pacho.
It's crazy. I mean, it's a different event for all the different players. Goal scorers being acquired to be the piece for teams that want to go win the Stanley Cup. Different kind of pressure on them. Role players that come and fill a spot. And then teams like Ottawa who, for months, they've known that these names have been in play. You know, you don't have a contract for the next 4 years, like Shabbat, like Kachuk, who's going to be up and they're not going to move. Well, if you're not in that category, you could be going. So it's an uneasy feeling. It's a feeling of you're excited for the player who gets to go, where they get to go. They all refresh their phones probably 9 million times today like we did, and they want to know where they're at. Their families want to know. So, and when that player does leave, you're excited for them, but you're going to miss them. So the relationships are made. You create the bond with them all year. This is a team that works hard in Ottawa, for example. It happens throughout the league. But, yeah, there's different situations for everyone. But the anticipation, the anxiety, the not knowing how it's going to happen, and there's some players in the league that do have a no-trade clause where they control where they get to go. So lots of fascinating stories. But now that the deadline is passed, you look around the room, you know exactly what you're at, where you're headed. And there's a lot of, I think it's excitement for everyone right now, even if you're like the Senators and the Devils who are out of it, but understand the future and who's going to be around.
Well, the Blue Jackets are in a battle for a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. A lot of the teams are battling with it right here in the Metropolitan Division, and many of them did make moves. We talked about the Islanders making that move today. What about the Carolina Hurricanes and what they did today? They made some major moves. They started off when they got Vinny Trocheck from the Florida Panthers, Eric Holla, Lucas Wallmark, going the other way, then a couple of prospects after that. So 4-for-1 deal right there for Trocheck, who is a very good centerman, and he'll help them down the middle for sure.
You think? Yeah. And I like Trocheck. You know, he comes off that terrible injury. Was that a year and a half ago or last year where he broke his leg? Mm-hmm. And he's fast, he's skilled, he makes quick decisions with the puck. But to me, this is a shake-up move. This is a team in Florida who has no idea what they are. New coach, new goalie, highly paid goaltender, some key pieces there. Still don't defend well. They can score goals. And this is a message to that team to say, hey, we got to shake this up. They're bringing in Holla, who's got speed, Wallmark, who's reliable, and good on the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, that's a team that expects to win. What happened there the other night when they put in the backup goalie, who was actually a Zamboni driver in the minors, a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. He came. It's well documented. He was on Good Morning America this morning, or one of those big shows.
He was everywhere.
He's been all over North America. And David Ayers, he beat his hometown team growing up, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it's just a great story for the Carolina Hurricanes, who have injuries and two goalies, who have injuries on D. Pesce went out last game, their top D. So they go, and that's a move that helps solidify their forwards, but they made other moves, Bob.
Yeah, let's talk about the moves they made defensively. Dougie Hamilton got hurt here against the Blue Jackets last time the two teams played. He's been out. You mentioned Brett Pesce gets hurt, so they needed to fortify the blue line. They did that today, too. They went out and they got two pretty big-name guys. They started with Sami Vatanen from the New Jersey Devils, and they were able to pick him up for a young forward and then a second-round pick. And they weren't done with that. That wasn't enough for them. They knocked on the door of the New York Rangers, and Brady Shea comes over in exchange for a first-round pick. These are two legitimate, solid blue liners.
I can't believe they got Brady Shea for a first-round pick. Great job by the Carolina Hurricanes. This, to me, is a head-scratcher. When I thought of the New York Rangers, when I look at what they are, I thought Brady Shea is going to be there for a long time. Liked in the locker room, offensive-minded, but he's big. He plays defensive. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, the Rangers sent a note out to all their fans last year saying, we're in a rebuild, be patient. But they picked up Panarin, and things have been expedited, but maybe they're taking a step back there. And then Vatanen, for me, is a very good defenseman. I love the way he plays the game. He was in New Jersey. He was injured of late, and we didn't see him a couple times, but very smart, technically sound, and on a bad team even he was reliable. So Carolina Hurricanes they've made a statement here today.
Yeah, they sure did. And they needed to make moves. They went out, they made those moves. And again, they're battling near the bottom of the Eastern Conference, so they need to do just that. Jarmo Kekalainen, the Blue Jackets general manager, is stepping to the podium to talk about what he was able to do today, maybe what he couldn't do today either, who knows. But he'll get us up to date on what the day has been like from the Blue Jackets standpoint. Let's send it to him.
As a player, more of a known quantity type player in Devon Shore than you're trading away? Well, I mean, I think we gave Sonny lots of opportunities to show us his potential, and we saw a different type of player in Devon Shore that we think can help us, and we wanted to go with that opportunity and wish Sonny the best of luck from now on in Anaheim. I don't know if that answers your question.
Now that the deadline has passed, can you verbalize what the current injury situation did to your ability to effectively work with teams? How big a handicap was that for you in terms of trying to get something going?
It's difficult, obviously, because we have so many guys hurt, but at the same time, we've been battling hard with this group. We've gotten points out of 29 of the last 34 games, and we have 74 points for the season, and we're still in the race. So, we believe in these guys that have given their heart and soul for the team for the whole year, and tried to help them the best we can. But with a lot of guys out, and we told everybody from the start that we weren't going to be in the business of going for the high price rentals this spring. It just we did it last year. We spent some draft picks and felt that it was the price to pay at that time for the opportunity with the group that we had last year. We can't do it 2 years in a row, or we've used our first round pick 2 out of the last 3. So our amateur scouting staff's done a great job, as you've seen, with our depth and the players that they've gotten us through the draft. So I don't want to handicap them and use picks for rental players. So that handicapped us as well a little bit. But with 10 players on the IR, it makes things difficult.
Yeah, just what kind of player is Devon Shore in your mind, and will he be joining you in Minnesota tomorrow?
Yeah, he's flying right in, and he'll be joining our group tomorrow. He's a hard-working player. He's versatile. He can play left wing and center, and has had some success in the offensive end as well. Maybe not this year with Anaheim, but he's not old yet. He's still a player that's well in his prime years for the next who knows how many years, but should be many, and we'll get a good look at him this year and see how he fits in our future plans. And we've had our eye on him for quite a while now, and tried to make a deal earlier for him, and then it worked out like this today, and we're excited to have him.
Yeah, aside from the deadline day, could you give us an idea of the 7, 8, 9 regulars who are out? Who's closest to coming back?
I leave that to the medical staff, so they'll tell us when they're ready, and that's about it. But so we should have some forwards back soon, so that's the good news here. So that'll be our deadline additions. If we get probably Wenberg and Atkinson are closest coming back, and those will be 2 huge additions to our group when they get healthy.
I guess first, do you expect? Sorry if I just missed this, but do you expect Josh Anderson to come back this year and play first?
Again, I'll leave that to the medical staff, but it's been lingering for a long time, so we'll see. But I leave all those decisions to our medical staff. They just inform us when they're ready, and we'll go from there.
How tough was that balance? You mentioned it earlier about how hard this team has worked to stay in the playoff race. How tough was that balance to try? Because I know you probably wanted to help this team this year, but you also have to look down the road. Was that a tough kind of thing to not go out there and spend crazy? And
no, we made that decision all along this year that we're not going to be a buyer with the futures this year. If there was a prospect that wasn't in the first tier of our prospects that we see as coming as being a big part of our future, maybe, yeah. But guys around the league, they scout the prospects just like we do. So everybody's asking about Marchenko and Voronkov and Tarasov, and we're not trading those guys. They're going to be a big part of our future.
When you see Metro teams, the Islanders loaded up today, several other teams around you, Carolina added up today, how difficult is that to watch those teams you're kind of fighting for that last spot with, maybe make significant moves and not be able to join the party?
I mean, it doesn't always work out in the way that you plan, and they got stronger, at least on their roster, and time will tell how that will translate on the ice. But we'll concentrate on our own team and battle like we have, and had some great success with the adversity that we've gone through this year, and it's all been because of the team concept that we have here, that everybody is buying in, and coaching staff's done a great job, and it's been a full team effort all year long, and that's going to be the recipe for success from now on. And it's not going to be about adding one guy or adding two guys, even when we have the guys out that we do. It's going to be about us playing as a team and being a tight group defensively and staying in every game. And like I said, we've taken points out of 29 of the last 34 games, and we've had these injuries since December, and we've had good success. And yeah, the race might have gotten tougher because of the additions on the other teams, but time will tell.
You signed a guy out of the AHL, Matteau, to an NHL deal, and made Sonny a healthy scratch 2 games ago. Brought up Thurkoff, made Milano a healthy scratch. Has this deal been in the works? Did you know you were trading Sonny Milano for a few days now? Just not aware.
Never know until it becomes a reality. So, no. It's until it's done, it's not done ever. That's one thing I've learned.
Is that why you scratched him?
I don't want to get into that. I won't comment on that.
Jarmo, with Sonny gone, there's 11 forwards now. Do you have a move planned to have someone up to play tonight?
Yeah, we'll call up a guy to play tonight. We'll announce it shortly, and we'll have 12 forwards tonight.
And you look at last year to this year, very different. Obviously, you brought in 4 guys last year. You're happy with what you did. Are you happy with, when you look back at today, what you got, what you were able to get done? I mean, how would you assess today in general?
Well, we did our best, and that's one thing that we always, if we do our best, we can look in the mirror and say that's all we could get accomplished, and I'm fine with that. I can assure you that was our best effort to do whatever we could today that would make sense not only in the short term but for the long term as well. And we're not happy with the injuries that we have, but that's something that's out of our control. Yeah, we also traded Kekalainen to Arizona for conditional 7th.
Oh,
Thank
and
you.
for those of you keeping score, Devon Shore will wear 74.
There's Blue Jackets general manager Jarmo Kekalainen talking about the acquisition of Devon Shore. You also heard him say right at the end there they have traded Marcus Kekalainen to the Arizona Coyotes for a conditional pick.
Conditional 7th.
Or conditional 7th. So Kekalainen leaves the organization. He's been in Cleveland all year.
Yeah.
And he's battled through some injuries this year, too.
He's had injuries, no room in the lineup, and I like what they've done with those 2 pieces. You know, it's tough to be in the National Hockey League but not really playing. It's tough to think you can be in the lineup and not play. Milano and Kekalainen, 2 players that have been here. They've been good Blue Jackets, but it just isn't working right now. So they go on to different places, and they both get opportunities to prove themselves as NHL players. And when Jarmo Kekalainen said, I thought it was very interesting, he seemed like, and he did say they tried their best, him and his management group. He did what he could to help this team. And I feel like he really feels for the players in the room and what they've done. The respect, you could feel it right away. The respect for the people in the room and how they've battled to put them in this position, even though the major injuries that have happened, the first thing he said was, I tried to do it for the guys in the room, and I love that. That's exactly what he tried to do today, and again, we talked about it coming into Jarmo's press conference. He was not going to forge the future. He knows what he has in some of these prospects, even the ones we haven't seen. I think that's the key to this organization moving forward. Trade deadline day is exciting, but it can be disappointing, and it's not a time to react, and he didn't react to the rest of the Metro. He knows what he's got coming back, and that, to me, is could be an exciting, 18 games left or something like that?
Yeah, it's
crazy.
And it would be really, really interesting. We were talking about the teams in the division that made some the acquisitions right before Jarmo came in. Let's just go through these very quickly because Philadelphia is a team the Blue Jackets are battling with. They got Nate Thompson today. That is a Philly kind of player. I mean, he's gritty, he's tough, plays in the middle of the ice, and they get him for a fifth-round pick.
I love this. I mean, this is a veteran player, and he plays with edge. He plays hard. They only gave up a fifth-round pick. And I love this is a character guy, and Philadelphia is one of those teams. Those Flyer fans are not selling out the arena every day, every night anymore. They like to see some grit, and I think Nate Thompson's one of those pickups.
Right. They also made another deal with the Anaheim Ducks today when they picked up Derek Grant.
Yeah, this guy's gritty.
Or sorry, from yeah. So they got Derek Grant here.
He was in Anaheim, I think.
Yeah, that was in Anaheim. But anyway, they get these two guys. They add to it. Then the other team that made a big splash in the division, and everyone hates to hear this, but they did. They went for it today, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's just go through. I'm going to give you all the names of what they did today. They get Patrick Marleau from the San Jose Sharks, and they get a draft pick in exchange for Patrick Marleau. Then they go to Buffalo, and they bring back Connor Sherry, who had been with them previously and has been a champion with them. They also get Evan Rodriguez in exchange for Dominic Cahoon. And then if you put that back with what they did a couple of days ago when they got Jason Zucker from the Minnesota Wild and got rid of Alexei Galchenyuk, who just wasn't working there, they have beefed it up. Jim Rutherford, old school guy. He knows he has two great players in Malkin and Crosby. He knows that window is closing with those two guys because they're getting older. But while he has them, it's obvious. Picks, he doesn't care about the picks. I mean, he's going to utilize those picks to get players that can help them right now. That's what he did today.
Yeah, and the Zucker trade, I mean, what a trade. Speed. You know, the thing about the Pittsburgh Penguins is guys like Gensel, Sherry, who's back there now, Cahoon, where do they come from? And how well do they fit in with Crosby or Malkin? And that's really their storyline. And Gensel's been one of those players that's come out of nowhere and plays fast, thinks the game's fast, and has chemistry with Crosby. But he's out. So now what the Penguins do, you're right. They build around their pieces. They've made some acquisitions. They're not holding onto their picks, but that's exactly where they're at. So we love seeing these trades throughout the Metropolitan Division. And I also agree with Jarmo. We saw it here last year with the Blue Jackets. I know they got by the Lightning in the first round, but second-round disappointment to lose to the Boston Bruins. It doesn't ensure that you're going to go all the way. Teams are loaded up. Teams have a lot of pressure now, and even more pressure on individuals they've picked up to go and win the Stanley Cup. And I think the Blue Jackets, where they sit today, I mean, I know we're all upset about the injuries. When you get key pieces back to about the next 3 or 4 weeks, this is the excitement for this organization.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen, and the pressure is not on this team right now.
Well, that's a great point. And you're talking about adding NHL players. You could say they made a trade yesterday. They got a goaltender. Jonas Korpisalo came back, and he's ready to play for the first time since late December. So you've added an NHL goaltender. You just heard Jarmo say that Cam Atkinson and Alexander Wenberg hopefully are coming back soon. That's two NHL forwards, one a centerman who they have missed his defensive ability playing at the center position.
Oh, big time. And I think he's that player that goes underrated because we look at goals and assists. But on this team, it's not goals and assists every night that get the wins. It's spreading it around. So I think the pressure's off Cam Atkinson. He had 41 goals last year. He's been injured this year. Come back and just enjoy being a part of this lineup and helping. And they picked up Devin Shore, who's an NHL player. Listen, NHL players with experience, they're not everywhere. And they're not easy to pick up. So you had Milano here who was struggling and couldn't play in the lineup. And you go and flip him for a player that's excited about his third opportunity in the National Hockey League. And maybe this is the system where he fits in and does great things. But in the locker room, it's always nice to see that fresh face walk in. The Blue Jackets have seen it all season long with guys from Cleveland who we've gotten to know, but we didn't know. And just picking up one, I think it just makes sense to do what they did. Not the individual in Shore, but just the whole idea of not saying react, overpay, hope. It's like, no, we know what we have, add, which for what makes sense, and then, hey, get healthy.
Right. And then when summertime comes, maybe it's a different mindset. Maybe you do different things.
Well, that's when you can surprise people. But all the names that moved today, except for Shea and, well, Trocheck was out there a little bit. To me, those guys were on the board. Even Shea was on the board in the top 50 guys that could have been moved. So the surprises like Panarin, they happen in June. Mm-hmm. You know, when organizations are trying to make that shift. But right now, it's teams that are, some teams are reacting, some teams might be overreacting, but look like everyone in the Metropolitan, except for the Devils, who are unloading, thinks they've got a really good shot.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. The Blue Jackets and the Ottawa Senators, the only game in the National Hockey League tonight, 7 o'clock start. Jody will be on Fox Sports Ohio. I'm on the Blue Jackets radio network. So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and bring you that game tonight. Thanks for joining us to talk about the NHL Trade Deadline. Again, Devin Shore is going to join the Blue Jackets tomorrow in Minnesota. He'll be in uniform tomorrow when the Blue Jackets take on the Wild. Sonny Milano leaves the organization and goes to the Anaheim Ducks. Marcus Hannikainen also leaving and going to the Arizona Coyotes. A couple of smaller deals today, but the Blue Jackets have many bigger things in mind. Thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you tonight.